just about some of the things that we'll want to have in our business plans and to work on our business ideas. To start, we'll have a prayer given by Max Rosende, and then we will begin. So take it away, Max.
Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, to be here tonight and that we can learn more about our business plans. We ask you that thy Spirit will be present, that we can learn through thy Spirit and be successful. We ask you to watch over us this night and help us to have a good night and a good rest of the week in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
All right, I'll just introduce Brother Logan Woolley quickly. He went to school here not too many years ago. He graduated here 11 years ago. Yep, 11 years ago. And now he is at a point in his life where he can come here and teach us some of the secrets to life. He has a beautiful family, and they're up at Turtle Bay right now. Yeah. And he enjoys surfing, and he also enjoys giving out $100 bills to students on occasion. Because I scored one myself. But yeah, I'll turn the time over to Brother Woolley.
So I just had to wonder how many people would be in this year. I think last year there was probably 3 times this many. There's a lot more people participating last year. That improves your chances.
Okay. Just one real quick announcement, some of you may or may not know. A week from this Saturday, we're having an all-day event in this room. Starting at 9 o'clock, we're flying over a couple of people that are really, they presented at, Berkeley, Stanford, BYU and University of Texas on how to especially evaluate companies. So Shark Tank's one way, but also just how you can do that. There'll be some certain skills that hopefully will be very helpful to you. So we'd love to have you consider that as it may not be quite as directly related to your business plan that you're doing here, but it definitely is a way to help you understand how to value businesses. And that's part of what people will be doing as they judge you, is looking at whether they think you have a successful model. So again, that'll be on the Saturday morning right after Valentine's Day. If you want to come here and be here. Thanks.
Hey guys, happy to be here. I see a lot of faces that I've never met you guys, and so I'm excited to talk to you. Hopefully you haven't heard too many of my secrets already, otherwise it'll be boring. But let me start off by just telling you a little bit about myself. And I don't do this. In fact, I was in a meeting just the other day with a group of professors, and we were learning about how to be better teachers. And one of the important rules is that the professor is not the star of the class. And so, and they encouraged us to ask a lot of questions. So I'm gonna use that technique tonight. Hopefully you guys will do most of the talking. Again, I don't want to be the star, but I wanted to tell you just a couple of things because hopefully you guys can relate. As James mentioned, I went to school here not too long ago. And I think that is important because just like you guys, I have sat through many presentations and these people have these unbelievable resumes, and they went to Harvard, and then they went on to do this and that, and quickly I started to kind of like doubt myself almost, like, well, yeah, of course you're super successful and you got all this money because you went to Harvard and all these other great things. But let me tell you that I not only went to school here, but I would have been considered a very average student at the time. In fact, I would have been back on the back row probably wearing a hoodie and not raising my hand very much, and getting decent grades, but certainly if you tested my IQ, it wouldn't be off the charts, or I don't even think it would be above average. And so that's my message to you tonight is you don't need all of those fancy, degrees and any of that. It just, in my mind, it doesn't matter. In fact, when I interview people today, and that's the one thing that I still do in my company. Besides that, I'm retired. I'm unplugged from that. But I still involve myself with hiring and interviewing people. And it doesn't impress me anymore when somebody tells me, what school they went to, they've got an MBA. I like to hear about what they've done. And I know that tonight the topic is for us to, we're going to talk about business plans. And all too often, I've been here long enough, and then I'm approached all the time now by people wanting to find money and investors, and I've come to the conclusion that I am not, I think ideas are just useless. They're just, that's all they are. And now when I'm approached and people ask me if I'd like to invest some money, I say, tell me where you're at in the process. What have you done? And if they tell me, well, this is early stages. This is just an idea. I say, look, I'm not interested, but go back to work and come back and when you have something to show me, because in my eyes, that's all that matters. Is not the idea. It's everything that comes after the idea. And so that, again, please understand that I'm just like you guys. There's no difference. And in 10 years, I've been able to get to a point where, as James said, I can do whatever I want now. I can come here, I can volunteer, I can go travel the world with my family, and all it came down to was a decent idea, maybe. I don't even, if I would have pitched, in fact, you guys, I presented a business plan here at this school, and I didn't make it through round 1. And I don't even remember what my idea was, but I think my idea, the business that has allowed me to retire at age 35, it wouldn't surprise me if it didn't get through round 1. You know what the idea was, is my first product was trading human hair. And I can just, see it now. Guys, I got this great business plan. What do you think? I'm going to go buy piles of human hair and then sell it. Don't you think that's a good idea? Everybody would have thought I was crazy. So I would say don't worry so much about the idea. It's everything that comes after that. Okay, so before we start to get interactive here, there are a few things that I've been asked to share. And on Canvas, there are these 2 documents that they've uploaded, I think just tonight. And one of them is your information packet. And if you've not taken a look at this yet, I would highly recommend doing that, because it's got all of the rules and regulations, and so you can follow those. And then
especially judging criteria.
Yes, judging criteria, all of those things. If you're on a team, how many people can you have? All those important things. And then there is also a couple. This other document here is an excerpt from this book called Nail It and Scale It. So I was asked to share this with you. And these books, I think, are available to check out.
The next book is kind of related to the white book.
Okay. So this document's on Canvas. Check it out. It's a great great resource for you. And then this is the book then that you can check out. And this is called Business Model Generation. And I'm actually very familiar with this book now because I use it in the class that I teach. And there's a lot of information in here that would have saved me a lot of time and headache and money had I known about this after graduation and before starting my company. So check that one out. Come and talk to the Willis Center if you want to check it out. And we have copies for you. So let me touch on something really quickly that I think this is very important. There's basically, I know you guys can't see this, but there are 9 sections here, and this is the canvas, they call it. So there are 9 things that it forces you to think about when you are coming up with your idea and coming up with a business plan. And I can go over those things very briefly, but one is the value proposition. And the value proposition will be very important to you in your business plan because basically that's what is my business, what problem am I solving, or what are my customers gaining from my business. Then it talks about customer segments, which is who is your customer. And you'd be surprised how many of my students get this wrong. They think that their customer is one person, one type of person, and they're entirely wrong. And so this forces you to get to know those customers, not only who they are, but really what they're all about. Customer relationships, and once you figure out who those customers are, how do you manage that relationship with them? Channels is another one. How are you going to sell your product or service? Through what channels? Key activities, which is basically what's the important stuff that you're going to have to do when you create this company. Key resources are things like money. Do I need a building? Just any resources that are important to you in starting that company. Every company is a little bit different. Revenue streams, cost structure, and key partners. So those 9 things, I tell my students, if they can really understand those things, they would be able to write a business plan very, very easily. Because again, it forces you to ask all those questions and answer them. So here's a little tip for you guys. If you go online to this website, it's called Udacity, udacity.com, and it's all free, and to register it's very easy. I think all it asks you for is a username and password, and you're in. But what's so amazing about this is there are a lot of different courses in here, but there's one that I use in my class, which it's taught by a guy named Steve Blank. Steve Blankson, he is a professor at Stanford, teaches this to Stanford MBAs. And the fact that it's online and it's all free is pretty amazing because you know what those students pay. It's a lot of money. And here we get it for free. And it's him. If you can see that, it's not streaming very well here, but he himself is on there talking you through all of these things, and it's very user-friendly, very easy to understand. So I would highly recommend that you get on there and check that out. The course is how to build a startup once you're in there, and again, I highly recommend it. The other thing that I think is very important, and I'll be quiet after this, is another website, and we are talking about actually having you guys, anybody who's submitting a business plan, actually using this format. So if you go to sba.gov, And then if you click on that home page, there is this icon here that says create a business plan. And if you click that, I should have already an account, so I'm just going to log in really quick and show you guys how easy this is to use. Hopefully that works. Okay, so I'm in. So basically, there's, as you can see across the top here, there are 8 sections, really 7, and then you finish up. But the reason why this format is so user-friendly is if you click on there, like the introduction, it'll go through and it'll say, okay, here's what an introduction is. Not only will it explain it to you, but if you go over here and say, okay, I want an example of a cover page, you can click on that and it will give that to you. So, and that will continue throughout the entire business plan. So it generates these places where you can fill out the information, and at the end of the process, it creates this PDF file that is a business plan. And let me go back here. So it gets into an executive summary here, and it will say, an executive summary is an introduction to your business. This section should be clear, concise, and to the point. We recommend that you revisit the section to review the work after completing other sections of the business plan. And then again, if you click over here, it'll give you a few different examples of that. Okay, so I would, we'll probably know within the next few days, I'm guessing, whether or not this is the format. I know there's one other format floating around out there, and some of you may already have that, and if you do, I think that's just fine. Is that right, Brother Tanner?
And this will be an allowable form for you to use. The SBA one, we do have another one. We're going to allow either form to be used, but this is very tutorial as you go through it. So there is the other one that is more like what we used last year. For those of you that did it last year, this is very, very intuitive, I think. So
yeah, because I would be. Like I've been doing business now for a decade, and I would be overwhelmed by creating a business plan. And when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's something that I could handle. You know, it walks me through the entire process. So in fact, in the financials, it doesn't skip the difficult part, but what it does do is it creates these spreadsheets for you. As you can see, a profit and loss, cash flow, projected balance sheet, break-even analysis. It does all of that for you. You just put in the numbers and it will populate. All the formulas are there. So, because I know that some of you in here are not business majors, and even if you are business majors, I have problems with some of these things. So if you run into problems, it's normal. Like, and that's why the mentors are here, and hopefully they can answer the questions. So that's all I have for you as far as the tools, but what I'd like to do here tonight is get some of you guys talking. And as I mentioned before, I think I was able to come and judge this competition last year. And I know Paul Wilson was here. I don't know if Gene, you weren't here, right? So Paul was here as a judge, and it was a very interesting experience for me. And I'll tell you, I can share my feelings. Maybe Paul, you can even share yours as far as you know, what a judge might be thinking as we're being presented to. But not too unlike somebody coming to me and sharing their idea, I'm more interested in the people who captured my attention and the people who I thought, wow, they've really got a shot at starting this company, were the ones who had something to show. I know that, like Calais, we talked just a couple of days ago, and Calay's got this idea that's enormous, right? It's enormous, and it could change the world. And it's when these ideas come up, like one of the first things it's natural to ask is, where in the world do I start, right? Where do I start? And so one of the things that I teach is about something called an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. And so let me ask the question to you guys right now. Who has an idea out there and they really just don't even know where to start? And what we can do is just discuss this. You have an idea where you don't know where to start?
Yeah.
So spit it out here. Let's figure this out.
All right, so in the coast of Somalia, there's pirates, and there's a new industry where ship owners will hire basically security guards on the ships to battle off pirates. So it's a big industry, huge problem, and for me to jump into that industry, I don't even know where to start.
Okay. Wow, that is a
Yeah.
out of my world. But let's talk about this. So if you and I got together, let's say this were our company and all these people were doing something for the company. Where would we start? What are some of the first things you might do?
Just call up all the existing customers or existing companies. There's 170 of these companies that supply security guards. So start there. So start with all these other agencies. I mean, there's just a list of contacts that I've found. So just start with people in that industry.
Okay. So, and are those competitors that you're talking about then?
Yeah, competitors.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and doing that is very important. In the business plan, you're going to have to provide some sort of a competitive analysis, right? Or finding out who your competition is. And I don't know about you guys, but I shared the other day in class, I'm an ultra, like, unhealthy competitive person. Like, my wife thinks it's not a good thing because I'm so competitive. Like, if I'm racing my 4-year-old up the stairs, I have a problem letting him win. You know, it's like that's how competitive I am. So that's what motivated me early on is my competition. It wasn't the money. It was specifically this one company that I wanted to take down. You know? I know that doesn't sound right, but that was my motivation. And so calling a competition is good if you'd be amazed at what you can find out by calling competition, because who knows who's answering the phone, right? I mean, I worry about this every day because I've got people working at my company that I'm paying $10 an hour, and I'm sure that somebody could call up my company and ask any kind of question they wanted, and they might get an answer. And so, in fact, I've done this before, you know, to figure out pricing or just call the competition and ask the questions, and you'd be surprised at how much information you can gather. So that's a good place to start. Where else would we start? Who would we need? Who would we need to start this company? Yes, please.
Logan, I'm not sure it's the best place to start, although in my opinion, I think it's critical to take a look at the numbers. Over the years, I've been involved with a lot of people who want to start businesses and have a wonderful idea, have made a study and started a plan. But once they get to the point where they realistically look at the numbers, they decide the market isn't big enough, the costs are too expensive. But somewhere along the line, I think you really need to take an objective look at what the income and the expenses are going to be and see if it's going to do what you want to do. If it's really a feasible business plan. Because a lot of them aren't.
Yeah. You're absolutely, I've been involved in some of those where we think it's one thing, but as we get further and further down that road, we realize there's no business here. Yeah.
Not going to work.
Yeah, so that's an excellent point, and this visit plan will force you to look at this as you're looking at your market size. It's very important to do, and as soon as you realize it's not there, pivot, go somewhere else. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Anything else? We're starting a pirate security business in Africa. Paul.
I personally, this is more to my personality, but human capital is so expensive and unreliable. I would look at eBay, I'm talking what it would cost to mount something on a boat that is automated, that will take care of the operator problem instead of just having security guards. So looking at it more of, is hiring people the right route, or is building technology that I can scale much bigger than hiring, 100 or 1,000 people to be security guards.
That's a great point. That's a great point. We may have a business here. Nobody can steal this idea. But yeah, that's a good point. Instead of hiring these ex-Navy SEALs to carry around guns, you've got some sort of technology on there.
The industry is in upheaval because a lot of bystanders are being killed like fishermen. So they're totally readdressing the market or the kind of military action. And I'm leaning more towards some either less labor-intensive way, either like a safe house or some kind of safe room, so that people aren't taken hostage. So there's just different angles to take it because the industry is really looking for an alternative.
Good. So that's a great idea. You got an idea.
Also, just with that, I know a lot of the oil industry, a lot of oil rigs get hijacked by pirates. That'd be a pretty sweet place to go down.
Yeah, cargo, oil.
Yeah.
I think it's crucial for you to really question if the market is literacy, what they're saying, because a lot of times you see it in the news, it's like as if it's so big, right? Is it really that many hijacking in there? And then next thing you need to look at is your competition. How many of all those security groups are already there? You gotta look at what their cost structure are, right? What are the insurance claims for these people who are dying protecting the vessels that they're doing? So if you don't really have, if it's a commoditized product, then you have to have the lowest cost structure. But since it's really high cost, and you're talking about human life, you gotta have insurance premiums there, and you may have to pay more. And so competition is really big. You gotta have your niche. What additional security can you offer that you can charge a premium price for your
So a lot of questions here, right? And I know you're just getting into it, but as you do more and more research, you'll be able to answer all of these questions. And on the flip side, I think it is very important to go down this road and try and answer as many questions as you possibly can. Especially if it's very capital intensive, it's going to require a lot of money from you. However, I will give warning. I've seen this happen so many times. I have friends that were starting companies at the same time that I was starting mine, and they would just analyze things to death. And they would almost become paralyzed because they feel like they need to have the answer to every single question before opening their doors to business, right? And that's why it's very important to come up with a minimum viable product. Or basically, like, what's something that we can just put out there and get feedback from these customers of ours. And then we've got version, imagine if Apple decided to wait to launch the iPhone 10, right? They'd still be buried in some room making it perfect, and it's just not how companies grow. It's they start somewhere and then they grow from there. So yeah, educate yourselves absolutely, but don't become paralyzed to the point where you just never do anything about it. You don't open up your doors, because that's where all the learning really starts to happen. So that's good. So any other business that you guys want to throw out there, and if you're not quite sure how to get this thing going? You have one?
Yes.
What is it? You got to talk loud.
Yes. Okay, for my idea is that I want to build a tutoring company in Thailand, in Bangkok area. Because like right now, most of the students after they finish school, they have to go to cram school to study more because they want to get in a famous university because they want to become more competitive in the future for their career.
Yeah.
And also because in 2005, the AEC, which is they call the Asian Community, will open in 10 countries. The goal of the AEC is to build a plan that benefits 10 countries. And one of the advantages from the plan is that, for example, if you are from China, or you're from like Brunei, you're from Singapore, you can come to in Thailand. Which means that Thai people, they have to improve their Mandarin, their English, you know, and other languages, right?
Yeah.
And also they have to improve like their skills to become more competitive because all laborers from different countries gonna come to Bangkok, right?
Yeah.
So I have the idea to open the tutoring agency because in Thailand right now, you know about the political intention in Thailand, you know about like the traffic jam in Thailand. It's one of the worst traffic jam in the world, in Bangkok area, right? And also because of the criminal, it's increasing in Thailand. So the parents, they're concerned about the safety of their children. So they try to find a way to solve the problem. So I think if we can send out the tutor to their house and tutor their children at home, will be a solution for them. That's my idea.
Thank you for sharing. It sounds like there are a lot of opportunities there because of for so many reasons that you just listed. But if you didn't hear, what's your name?
Just call me Orange.
Orange?
Because I have my long time.
Okay. Like orange, like I eat an orange?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So Orange said that she wanted to start a tutorial business, English, focusing on English. Is that right?
All the subjects
languages.
in school.
Okay. And in Thailand, where you're from, I'm guessing. And this is, I think, another. I love the educational business, and for a lot of reasons, and I'd be happy to talk to you because I have some experience in that. That was the first company I ever started, was a tutorial business in Hong Kong, and it's great. Here's the one thing I love about it is I was able to hire kids from the United States to come over and teach English. And that was so special because that's the one thing that the Chinese have a very difficult time counterfeiting, right, is the American accent. And they're good at making anything and everything. If I gave them anything, they could do it. Sometimes better than the original manufacturer, right? They're just very skilled at that. But copying that American accent or British accent was critical to my business, and that's why. But I think so. Let me ask you guys though. So she's starting a tutorial business in Thailand, right? And Paul had mentioned, you know, let's talk about technology and doing things differently. Throw some ideas out that she could use when she's starting up this tutorial business. Yeah.
Maybe just whatever you're interested in learning. You could have a monthly subscription, and they have access to things that specifically they want to learn.
Okay.
And so you have all that uploaded, I don't know, on your smartphone, iPad, whatever, and it's easily accessible. You know, paid subscription is a constant revenue stream, and there's no human capital, I guess is the word you use.
Yeah.
We're using technology to replace that expensive human capital.
Yeah. Absolutely. Using computers, smartphones is a great way to do this now, and you're not having to pay teachers and their time.
Yes, I was thinking along the same lines, utilizing technology to increase the business and decrease human capital since it is a valuable resource. I was thinking having this program in which you have an instructor doing a video, instructing math, English, whatever thing you be learning, and then so that those resources are available to students, yet they would always come by for half an hour, maybe twice a week, to have some one-on-one time with the student. And you're still not losing that valuable one-on-one time with the student. You're still feeling that they're getting your money's worth from the business.
It's great. Good point. EJ.
We have about a little over 200 teachers in Cebu and Manila teaching right now, teaching Korean students. And we've had this for about 8 years. And so there's a trade-off, because some people, the computer, they want that. There's so much free software out, now people don't want to pay much for it. And then you have the competition, because this is the American teachers. They want that no accident.
Yeah.
But then they don't want to pay that much. And you find the people in America that will come and be on time and be in the lesson on every time, they're too expensive. And so we had to basically, I don't know what you want to call it, and we had to hire full-time teachers, even though some of them were sitting and weren't teaching, but they had to be full-time teachers. And it's just the model that ended up working, and it was a lot cheaper. And so now we're actually farming our call center out to China, Japan, and we just started in Taiwan. But we've been teaching the Cree for over 8 years. And I would have a lot probably to talk to you about.
Yeah, you'd be a great mentor. Are you a mentor?
Today I am.
Well, it's your lucky day, Orange. It's your lucky day. There's your mentor. So yeah, I'm excited for you because I think there are a lot of opportunities there. And I've been looking at recently at a concept that brings the American or again British teachers, but utilizing technology to actually teach live over the internet. And the cost can come way down because what happens is you get 5 people huddled around a computer, and they may all share in the cost. They're only paying $1 to sit in on this lesson, but you've got hundreds, if not thousands of people also sitting in on this lesson. So it's a great opportunity, So, yeah, you got a comment?
So, I guess I'm talking to it. I graduated here 11 years ago.
Oh, good, with me.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I work for a private equity firm in Houston. We're oil-based private equity firm. But I worked in Wall Street for 5 years after BYU. I got my MBA, and then I worked for a private equity firm. And so we invest in oil and gas assets. But for you, it may be interesting for you to look at the Rosetta Stone. Are you familiar with Rosetta Stone?
No.
So it's an online learning where you can learn all these different languages. And also cater that, so you can study that module, and then also cater that, how you would cater that to your specific demographics, your market overall. And then what you can do also is, you want to do an in-house service, right? That's specifically what you mentioned. So that will take more study for you, but look at Rosetta Stone first, the module. It's a software, and I know in Asia they download and then they just hijack that software. But you can study how it's set up, but study how it's going to fit to your preference out there. I know a person, he graduated from here and he teaches English in Thailand, and he does it one-on-one. I can connect you to him, and then you can scale it and institutionalize that however you want to. But that's something that you can look at, and I think it's great. And yeah, you're right. It's a competitor in China cannot imitate that one. You know, you can protect your kind of IP.
Yeah, that IP is very valuable. Paul, you had a comment? Thank you for that.
So, you had brought up about kind of what I look at for judging, and for all of those that are here, this is kind of with the competition specifically. So, in my undergrad and in my master's, I entered 4 business plan competitions and placed 2 of them and placed in the second, third, and the other 2. And there really is a recipe that will help you when you're putting together your ideas and make you very competitive. So those that showed up and came here, this is something that you'll have an advantage over others if you really look at this. Because if you think of who your judges are, they're people like Logan, this gentleman over here from the private equity firm, and they're looking at your idea as an investor would look at the idea. And there's 3 things that last year when I was judging and when I was competing in these competitions that I would put these plans together. First is how do you protect your idea? So if I was investing into a company, I want my money protected. And so I tell students that come in and are mentored going through this is, can you patent your idea? If not, what's stopping someone with bigger money to come in and duplicate and push you right out of business? And as a judge, I'm going to look at that. And so when I competed in these competitions, I always tried to figure out how to do a provisional patent, which is a patent pending, something that you can do fairly quickly, and get out there and show the judges that, hey, I can protect what I have. The second is, how can you scale it? There was a lot of people that had great ideas, but it would stop. Once it grew just so big, you couldn't get it much bigger. And if I'm investing my money, I want to see it go at a large scale. And the third one, this is debatable, particularly coming from an entrepreneur who's like, I'm in it for the long haul. But as an investor, I'm looking, how do I exit from it? How am I going to, I'm not putting my money in just because you're a charity. I'm putting my money in to get a return, and I want to get the highest return possible. And I felt that was something that some of the students were missing last year is, how can I step out of this and get the most from it? And then if you approach it that way, at least in my experience when I've done these competitions, the judges, that's exactly what they're looking at.
Yeah. So just in addition, just a few more ideas. Have you heard of Kumon? Kumon Educational Centers? They're all over the world. Anyway, there's so many learning centers there, and they're commoditized. What he's trying to say, you got to have a specific niche. For one thing, in the education, any service type of security service has to be a lot better. And then your teachers will have to be a lot better than the others. So there should be certifications, and that's another value proposition to your business. So if you can train them, you can be better in service, because all the websites are going to be the same, right? But if you can couple that with the service, additional service, that their service people will pay you more and will choose you because you have better service.
Hey, thanks so much for your comments. So we're gonna leave Orange's idea, and because there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about tonight. So, as Paul said, there's certain things that these judges are probably looking for. One of the main things that I'm looking for is, it would be amazing to hear that what you've already done, okay? Because I immediately, when I hear these ideas, I think, so have you done anything? Like, where are you in this process? It's just a business plan? And as an investor and as a judge, that's one thing that I look at is, can you show me something? If it's a product, do you have a prototype? It may not be perfect, but do you have something to show me? And if it's a service, same thing. There's always, the more you can show the judges, I think the better off you'll be. But one other thing that I was asked to talk about tonight, and it's really, it wouldn't take me much time to cover, is how do you get your company financed? And there are really just, in my eyes, there are really only a few ways to do this. And I'll tell you my experience really quickly. I did what they call bootstrap, right? Because I graduated from BYU Hawaii. I had nothing. Like, I had zero money. The only asset that I had was like a 1992 Honda Accord. And that was it. But I recognized that was worth a little bit, right? And so I sold that car, and I was able to convince my wife that I think it would be a good idea to go carless and buy some hair, and then, hey, I'll sell the hair, don't worry. And I didn't know if it would really work or not at the time, but luckily it did. And so I took the money that I made from a car, I bought some hair, I sold it for twice as much as I bought it for, then I went and got more hair, and it grew from there. Now, I love that model personally, not only because it worked for me, but I was able to hold on to 100% of the company. I didn't have to give any of the ownership away because I borrowed money from somebody else. So, and again, you guys, you'd be surprised at the types of companies that you hear about today that were actually bootstrapped. It may take a little bit longer, you know, to do that. But if you don't have access to outside money, if your parents aren't rich, or you don't have rich friends to borrow money, or you present this to venture capital companies, it's tough. It's a very competitive market to go and try and raise money. So for venture capitalists, just so that in case some of you don't have a business background, those are these companies, these funds, where they will take a large, usually it's a significant amount of money, and they will invest it in early stage startups. These are oftentimes companies that have just gotten going, and they're, what else can I tell you? A lot of them are in Northern California, in the Bay Area. That's where a lot of them seem to be from. But you can find VC companies all over the world now, and usually they'll specialize in certain sectors and industries, technologies. Technology is obviously one that they love, because they talk about this a multiple. When they invest, like Paul said, if they give you $50 million, they want to know, hey, what's that multiple going to be? When am I going to get 100 million back or 200 million back? They're looking at this because it's very risky. The earlier the startup phase, the more risk that these investors are putting out there, and so they're looking for a big return. There are, you know, I've had friends that have sold companies to or shared equity in a company with VCs or private equity. Private equity, generally, these are companies that will come in similar to VC. They'll give you a large. They'll either buy out some of your shares as an owner, they'll infuse it with more money, they'll give you more money to take it from, you know, $10 million to 50, or 50 to a couple $100 million. And just for simplicity's sake, the main difference is VC is usually a little bit earlier on in the startup phase. Private equity, they're coming in a little bit further down the road. And they oftentimes want to get involved in management, help make decisions, be part of the board, those kinds of things. So I just watched who here knows the Dallas Mavericks owner? Mark Cuban. So I just watched a little video that he put out the other day. I mean, he is just so against taking other people's money, just because his argument is that you become a slave to these people, basically, because you got to make sure they get their money back, and you have to answer to them now. They want to know what you're doing with your time, those kinds of things. So you've got VC, and then you can always borrow money. You know, it's a scary thing. For me, I hate to borrow money. I hate to borrow money because it's, especially from family, friends, or anybody, I feel so much pressure to do that, and it's difficult. It's difficult to do. And so, what other ways can you get money to start a company? Am I missing any? Crowdfunding. Okay, this is an amazing concept, and I swear to you, if we were here a year ago and I said, who here knows what crowdfunding is? Maybe one or two hands would have gone up. But if I asked today, who here has heard of crowdfunding before? Most of you, right? And in 1 minute, here's what it is. There are these different websites that you can get on. The most popular one probably being Kickstarter. And you can present your idea. Usually, most people choose to present through some sort of a video. And they will say, hey guys, here's my idea. And a lot of people I would recommend if you can have some sort of a prototype. Some companies, you'll even see that there's no physical prototype. They've literally drawn one up in Photoshop to make it look like this thing already exists, right? And they say, here's my idea, I need some money though, because you know, this factory in China, they're going to require that I buy 2,000 of these to get it done. And if we can come together as a crowd, as a group, and you all give me, instead of VC, like here's $100 million or here's $100,000, if we come together as a group and everybody gives up a little bit of money, I can make this thing work. I can pull this off. And so that's the beautiful thing about this. And I've watched people. In fact, there's a student here that was here last year. He started this bamboo watch company and raised over $100,000. And so this is a very real, very cheap way to get a company going. The other beautiful thing about it, you don't have to give up any ownership again, right? So there are some downsides of crowdfunding, and when I say downsides, some headaches that may come along in the process, but nothing you can overcome. I personally have never used this, but this method of raising money, but from what I've seen, and I know that Paul Wilson in the back, if this is one way that you guys are looking to raise money for your idea, he knows a lot about crowdfunding. So anyway, that's, I don't know if I'm missing anything else for raising money. You've got a private equity guy here, Earl. Sorry? Paul Wilson, if Paul wants to raise his hand back there in the blue, he's your guy. He's your guy.
I just want to make a comment on capital.
Please.
A lot of times you would think what's really big money for you, you would think it's big money for others, right? But that's not necessarily true. You're a student, for example, you think that $1,000 is such a big money. Whereas you sit in Texas and Houston, there's $200 million net worth person. For him to give you $1,000, it's like cents on it. So don't be ashamed to ask your people, right? So one of the guys that I know was trying to kill a competitor. So this is a real story, and he was trying to sell this. He said, I have this company that would kill basically another company, right? To him, it's like he didn't know the value of this company. He didn't know the value of this company. And he went to this one guy who's also known as Bill Gates. And then he said, well, I'm going to sell this to Bill Gates because Bill Gates would like this because it's going to kill his competition. So he thought that this value of his company was $5 billion. For him, $5 billion was a lot of money already. But what he didn't understand is that Bill Gates would offer him $50 million, and if Bill Gates controlled the $50 million to kill the competition that was generating $300 million, Bill Gates would pay $60 million for his company, right? So think of capital as a relative money. Your 1,000 may be big for you, but for other guys just may be cents. And there's a lot of rich people out there, and believe me, like, don't be shy what I'm trying to say.
That's a good point.
Don't worry.
So anyway, you guys, I think a good way to, we'll kind of close up here, but please know that there are these mentors amongst us. And should I have them stand up just so students know who they are? Do you guys mind standing up if you're a mentor?
We don't need your claps, we just want to help where we can, that's all.
Yeah. So if you have specific questions regarding your business plan, your idea, anything regarding it, please come and talk to those people that just stood up. Looks like we have some other people that Orange you might want to talk to. Some bright minds here. So anyway, you guys, thanks for coming tonight, and we look forward to helping you further to hopefully win this thing.
And we'll have we will have another one of these workshops in 2 weeks specializing on finance. Jason Earl will be teaching that. Okay, so plan to come back.